So obviously he started out in Washington on Wednesday with the Commanders. I really don't need to say much about that group. Know them like the back of my hand. Going to Ravens practice on Thursday, first training camp under new head coach Jesse Minter. There is clearly how do I put this in the most polite way possible? There is clearly a adjustment period that I think is happening in Baltimore in terms of the relationship piece of all of this. Everybody being on the same page and so on and so forth. That has been definitely interesting to watch. Got the chance to catch up with Coach Minter post-practice, and just hearing how that group is beginning to gel together with one another has been interesting, man. So I was talking to someone, pretty trusted person within the Ravens organization. I don't want to divulge their info, but this was the most interesting takeaway to me from Ravens camp on Thursday. They described last year's offense under Todd Monken as an offense where Lamar Jackson and company were freestyling, flying by the seat of their pants. Under new offensive coordinator Declan Doyle, it feels like there is an adult in the room, and an adult in the room that Lamar Jackson respects. Everyone knows, some of the behind-the-scenes fodder that kind of came out surrounding the relationship between Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken, and Coach Harbaugh. Definitely had something to do with why, Coach Harbaugh is no longer, with the Baltimore Ravens. But just some early observations and takeaways from Baltimore. It's interesting. We're starting talking Ravens as we're here at the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the first thing that stood out to me, about my visit to Baltimore is just the changes that you're going to see on the offensive side of the football. Everyone's saying the right thing. Lamar's saying the right thing. Coach Minter saying the right thing. I got the chance to catch up with Zay Flowers post-practice. He's saying the right thing. I said this, I believe, last Wednesday on Westwood One Sports Night. I believe for the first time since, the 90s, we will have 4 teams make the postseason out of the AFC North. Now, I've got the NFL Network and ESPN next to me. They're probably thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? All 4 teams in one division making the postseason. That's how I feel. We'll get the chance to get 3/4 of the AFC North during this training camp trip. We will be out in Berea, Ohio, coming up next Friday, August the 7th, to be boots on the ground at Browns practice. So super duper excited for that. We won't take the trip, I believe, we won't take the trip to Cincinnati. I don't know for sure as to whether or not that's confirmed or not, but as for now, we're not going to take the trip to Cincinnati. But as of next Friday, I'll have the opportunity to have looked at 3 out of the 4 teams in this division, man. So pretty exciting stuff. I do want to get to the Pittsburgh Steelers here. While we have an opportunity to. Andrew, I know I totally threw you a curveball there. We will get to the Steelers audio here coming up in a second. Mike McCarthy, pretty transparent yesterday about where they are as an offense, what their goals are as an offense going into, the 2026 season. But just looking at Pittsburgh as a whole, the most important thing to me for the Steelers to accomplish during this training camp, it's really not on the offensive side of the football. I think the familiarity that Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy have with one another will allow that offense to hit the ground running when the regular season starts. I am curious to see the differences on the defensive side of the football under new defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, and seeing, how they use new safety Jaquan Brisker, how they use new corner Jamel Dean. It is a revamped secondary for the Steelers, and, last year at times, and really over the past several years, injuries have kind of, bit this group in the butt, and it's caused them not to play well defensively down the stretch. I don't expect that to be the case coming up here in 2026. They've got depth at all 3 levels, and most importantly, they're healthy right now. And I think when this defense is healthy, and you've got their trio of pass rushers with Highsmith and Herbig and Watt getting after you, they're a very, very difficult group to contain in terms of their defensive front. And look, y'all know how I get down, right? I'm the youngest in charge, but I have an old school mentality, right? Fantasy football managers and, all of your, gurus out there are going to tell you that, the game is about, throwing the football, and it's a passing league, and everything's about points. The Steelers get it. On both sides of the line of scrimmage, I love what Pittsburgh has. I love what Pittsburgh has on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Defensive line, a really solid group. Their offensive line, a really solid group. One thing I'll try to figure out today, being here boots on the ground in Pittsburgh, is the status of one Broderick Jones moving forward, and how much his injury history had to do with them drafting Maxi Inacho, one of my favorite tackles that came out in this past year's draft. A kid that's got great athleticism, probably one of the best pass protectors in all of that 2026 class. So that offensive line definitely going to be a group that is under the microscope. But from left tackle to right tackle, whether Maxi Inacho is in there or not, I like the group. I really do, man. I'm a big Zach Frazier fan. I know how I feel about him. Somebody that's just continued to get better and better throughout the early portion of his young career. I think last year with the Steelers, looking at their inability to push the football down the field vertically, that's probably the biggest difference that you're going to see to me with this offense. Last year it felt like more of a horizontal passing game. I expect this year for it to be a vertical passing game with Aaron Rodgers hooking up with DK Metcalf down the field, hooking up with his new weapon by way of the Indianapolis Colts, talking about Michael Pittman. I'm excited about what this group can be offensively, and I've been saying this really since Ron was with the New York Jets. I think a lot of people in the media have allowed their personal feelings about Aaron Rodgers to influence how they evaluate him as a quarterback. And last year, whether you believe it or not, it was the best completion percentage of his entire career. Like, this is a guy that really was strong in 2025, despite what, many people may say. You look at the ADOT and go, well, man, he's not pushing the ball down the field. Of course the completion percentage is going to be there. The one thing I would say to his credit in terms of why they did not push the football down the field, outside of DK Metcalf, who obviously missed a pretty significant chunk down the stretch, due to the injury and the suspension, they had Calvin Austin as their deep threat. That was the guy that was challenged with pushing the ball down the field. That was the guy that was supposed to be the deep threat in that offense, and he's now in New York with the Giants. I was there yesterday. I'll recap Giants practice for you as he rolled throughout this thing as well. But I just expect Pittsburgh's offense to be a lot more formidable coming up here during the 2026 season. Just hear it from their head coach, Mike McCarthy, who's had this to say about where the Steelers want to get to by the end of camp when it comes to their comfortability with this offense.
We want to be a master of our offense, and play the right way. We'll
get to Mike McCarthy coming up here momentarily. But just to briefly summarize what he said they want to master this offense going into the regular season. And when you look at the familiarity that they obviously have at the quarterback position, it doesn't seem like a pipe dream. It seems like something that they can realistically do. I'm excited about what they could be. I really am. Pittsburgh Steelers football, though, over the course of my lifetime, right, has been about defense and then running the football. You know what I'm saying? Bring in Rico Dowdle. He's splitting carries with Jaylen Warren. Warren's kind of your change of pace home run hitter and your third down guy. Dowdle's your in-between the tackles monster. And then who I'm interested in, Steelers fans, in terms of, can he bounce back here coming up in year number 2? Caleb Johnson, the rookie back last year out of Iowa, third-round pick, really dynamic player in college, but last year fell out of favor pretty early with this coaching staff because of his inability to protect the football. That's the problem that we saw from Caleb Johnson last year. I'm eager to see in year 2, does he see an expanded and improved role in this offense, man? It's going to be a fun, dynamic group to watch on the offensive side of the football. If you do not trust me on that, please hear from our guy Mike McCarthy, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, his first year here in the Steel City. He had this to say yesterday about where the Steelers want to be by the end of camp offensively.
We want to be a master of our offense, and play the right way. We don't want to be jack of all trades and try to, run a little bit of this, run a little bit of that. He knows me, and I feel he thinks the same way. It's got to fit together.
We have Mike. We don't have an Andrew. It's all good, though, brother. We'll get to Mike McCarthy here in a second. If you're just now tapping in, man, on one of our over 200-plus affiliates out there nationwide, welcome in to another installment of Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham, getting you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour continues here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, on the campus of one St. Vincent College. You know, I got to make it about me, right? I almost had like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up as I was walking up this hill to St. Vincent. You all know my Bethany College blood, being very familiar with this President's Athletic Conference. My competitive juices started flowing, boys. I didn't know what to think as I was walking up the hill. Practice begins for Pittsburgh, I believe, at 11:15, 11:30. We will have a full practice recap, bunch of content on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just search Westwood One Sports Night. You can check out this morning's live stream. You can get exclusive training camp content. We've been to New York. We've been to Washington. We've been to Baltimore. Today, stop number 4 on our training camp tour here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And how lucky are we, right? 2 out of the past 3 days, we got to watch and witness the beginning of a new era. It's a new era in Baltimore with Jesse Minter leading the Ravens. There's also a new era here in Pittsburgh with Mike McCarthy leading things, man. We're going to get into the Ravens coming up here momentarily as we continue to roll throughout this opening hour here on Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in charge. Remember, you can keep the conversation rolling with me as well on social media. It is at NELL_BTP. One thing that I'm going to watch here today and talk to folks on the sideline about is just from a culture standpoint, how has Mike McCarthy here in his first training camp, his first offseason, really put his fingerprints on this Pittsburgh Steelers organization? One dude that knows the prior regime pretty well is ex-Steelers safety Ryan Clark. He had this to say on his podcast, The Pivot, about how Mike is making this his team coming up in 2026.
When you look at Mike McCarthy coming in and attention to detail and the changing of how practices run, how the organization is run, it speaks to the fact that trust is earned. The Mike T that y'all met wasn't the Mike T that I met. Mm-hmm. The Mike T that understood this is how Ryan's going to practice or how Troy's going to practice, how they're going to show up on game day. That wasn't the guy that was there in 07, right? The guy in 07 had us tackling almost every day in practice, was making sure you were on the P's and the Q's and dotting the I's, crossing the T's, the pre-practice, the meetings were a certain way because he didn't know us and we didn't know him. And it wasn't that Bill Cowher wasn't supposed to be the coach anymore. Bill Cowher chose to move on, much like Mike Tomlin chose to move on. And I said the last 2 years, maybe both the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin could benefit from a split, from a conversation that says, I no longer need to be the head coach of this team. He said it himself. I'm going so the Cam Haywards and the TJ Watts.
That is Ryan Clark, ladies and gentlemen, providing some tremendous insight in terms of, you know, what this training camp is about for Mike McCarthy. I think that's like an underrated piece of this. Yeah, I know how I feel about relationship building when it comes to a football team, especially the relationship between coach and a player. I think the most important skill, and I say it all the time with a NFL head coach, high school head coach, college head coach, you got to have discernment, right? The discernment to know, hey, who can I pat on the back to get them to kind of get motivated, and who do I got to put my foot up their ass? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the best way that I ultimately could put it, man. And I think with Mike McCarthy here in year one, this is why you build out a veteran-laden staff. This is why you lean on the veterans and the returning guys on this roster. It's not just going to be Mike McCarthy standing up in front of the room just woofing. There is a respect that's got to be earned by every dude in this locker room, and I'm eager to see how that process plays out here throughout training camp with the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. This division, though, as I talked about in the open, man, is fascinating to say the least. I probably sent shockwaves through the national radio scene when I said what I said on Wednesday, and I'll repeat it again. I believe for the first time since the 90s, we're going to have 4 teams make the postseason from one division. So if you're a fan of the Patriots or the Bills in the AFC East, know that one of your teams I'm predicting isn't going to make the postseason. If you're a Texans fan or a Jaguars fan or a Colts fan in that AFC South, I believe only one team comes out of that division as well, man. It is going to be a fascinating season. I think there's more parity right now in the National Football League than there's been in a really, really long time. I think, all 32 teams across the league, most of them, I would say, not all, have the most important position in pro sports settled, talking about, quarterback. It's going to make for a very, very interesting 2026 season, man. We get things kicked off on a Wednesday night. Patriots, Seahawks, the rematch of last year's Super Bowl. Super duper excited about that, man. We continue to inch our way closer towards the start of the regular season. But before we get there, we got to handle some business here. Training camp in full swing. Stop number 4 on our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour brings us to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, out at St. Vincent College. Is where the Steelers will hold their training camp. The first training camp under head coach Mike McCarthy. Super duper excited to bring you all the latest from Steelers practice. Make sure you continue to like, subscribe, comment to Westwood One Sports Night on YouTube. Training camp exclusive content, YouTube shorts, long-form segments, and you can get the live stream each and every show as well. A lot more to get to as we roll throughout this opening hour here on Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham. As we continue to roll throughout this hour, I want to keep things in the AFC North. I mentioned this is stop number 4 on our training camp tour. Stop number 2 took us to the Charm City. It was training camp number 1 for new Ravens head coach Jesse Minter. I'll tell you my biggest takeaway from Ravens camp next. This is Westwood One Sports.
Jerry Jones is all in and open to trading for a player.
I'd give up future to add to where we are today.
Will the Cowboys trade for Raiders star Max Crosby? Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Lynnell Willingham.
All righty, party continues here on Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham, getting you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Coming to you live from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the home of Pittsburgh Steelers camp for 2026. It's been the home for a long, long time out here in Latrobe at St. Vincent College. I've already done my spiel about how I'm angry about being here. I feel like I'm being disloyal to my alma mater, the Bethany Bison, but we'll get over that as we roll throughout the course of the show. In about an hour and a half, we'll be joined by our pal Emery Hunt, CBS Sports HQ. We'll take a trip around training camp with him. I also got the chance to catch up with one of the absolute best in the biz, our guy Mike Silver, longtime NFL reporter. He'll stop by the program as well. So a loaded show for you all as we get you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I mentioned it, though, man. Stop number 4 on our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour. Stop number 2 was in the Charm City with the Baltimore Ravens. My biggest takeaway from being out at Ravens on Thursday, first and foremost, can I throw some shade for a second? If you're listening out there on 106.7 The Fan in Washington, D.C., cover your ears is what I would ask, right? Being in Baltimore at their complex in Owings Mills, it is – I've been to, Commanders, and I've been to Jets. It's the only 2 facilities I've actually gotten the chance to go to. What they have out in Owings Mills is literally a castle. And I know the arms race that kind of exists in the quiet battle that exists between the fans of the Ravens and the Commanders. Commanders fans, whenever facilities, stadiums, things of that nature are brought up, shut the hell up. The Ravens clearly, one of the best facilities in the NFL. Now, how can I say that? And I haven't been to a bunch of others. I just know. And from talking to folks around that building, beautiful facility, but they're also getting ready to plug $125 million more into it, man. So super duper exciting stuff if you're a fan of the Baltimore Ravens. My biggest takeaway, though, outside of just how beautiful the facility was, in this new offense, Lamar Jackson is slated, to me, to have the best year of his pro career. We saw what he was in 2024 under Todd Monken. Last year, obviously injury-riddled. Him in this Declan Doyle offense, man, I think it's tailor-made for him. And, for the first time in Lamar Jackson's career, we're going to see the run game and the pass game married up. He was under center a hell of a lot on Thursday from talking to folks, who were that coach mentor. Lamar uber comfortable in terms of what they have installed. They had him drinking through a fire hose in the spring. His ability to come back this summer with a much stronger grasp on things, I think is huge. You got to hear from him after their first training camp practice, and obviously, say what you want about him, and there have been a bunch of hubbub about his practice habits and his work ethic. The guy has a ball of charisma at the podium. Watching him practice for the first time, in my young career, that was awesome as well. A guy that takes it seriously, man. I think that's an organizational thing with Baltimore. We're talking about here in Pittsburgh how Mike McCarthy is going to establish his culture. I feel like in Baltimore, because Jesse Minter's already familiar with how the Ravens handle business, right? I think they'll hit the ground running. I think they'll be awesome in terms of, what they're able to do right away from a culture standpoint, from a on-the-field success standpoint as well. I really feel like Lamar Jackson in this offense, though, it's tailor-made for him to have a career year. The biggest takeaway about the offense, I mentioned him being under center a lot. I was talking to somebody on the Ravens beat, and I'm not going to drop them by name because what I'm about to say, they may not like me repeating, if I'm being honest. But they described last year's offense under Todd Monken, the past 2 years under Todd Monken, as kind of a freestyle, fly by the seat of your pants sort of offense. What you've gotten here out of Declan Doyle through the spring, and then through the first couple of practices of training camp. No disrespect, no shade to Todd Monken. There is a real adult in the room. There is a standard for what they want to be on the offensive side of the football. And I talk about marrying up the run game and the pass game. Derrick Henry spoke after practice the other day, and he's not somebody who usually has a bunch of words at the podium, but body language and excitement towards the offense was, clearly oozing off of him. It's just a more physical run game is how I would describe it, man. You're going to see them with their outside zone stuff that you see Ben Johnson and company run out in Chicago. I think you're going to see them with a power-based element to their offense as well. It will be a multiple group. The thing I'm most excited about, and we got to see it during the team period during Thursday's practice, the idea of Lamar Jackson working off of play action, getting the opportunity to turn his back to the defense and changing, having the picture change for him. How does he adjust to all of that? Through the first couple of days of training camp, the first couple of practices, nothing but rave reviews out of Baltimore. I say this all the time about Lamar. To me, he's probably the most misunderstood quarterback in all the National Football League. Not many quarterbacks are coming to the damn post-game presser in a Dior jumpsuit in a bust-down rollie, right? Like, he's just a different sort of cat. Remember the story that came out from the Baltimore Sun right after the Ravens and Tyler Luke missed that field goal that allowed Pittsburgh to advance to the postseason? There was, what I called a hit piece on Lamar Jackson talking about his work ethic and, how he handles himself outside of the facility, how he handles himself inside the facility. The most damning piece of that was the fact that, the Ravens under Coach Harbaugh practiced at 12:30 in the afternoon because Lamar couldn't get up in the morning. Was too busy playing video games. There was a story about, him not being attentive really during meetings. That was a detail that was brought out. A lot of folks in Baltimore threw water on that story when it first came out. A lot of people, rightfully so, coming to the defense of Lamar Jackson, the franchise quarterback. Anytime there's a reporter and, alleging these things about your franchise guy, it's going to ruffle some feathers, is how I would put it. I talked to someone on the sideline about that exact report, and the one thing that they said is, maybe there's some validity to some of it, but the most impressive part about Lamar through the first 8-9 years of his career is how close he's kept everything to the vest in terms of his personal life. Not a lot of people know what Lamar Jackson has going on. We know about his unique relationship with Kodak Black. We know about his affinity for the state of Florida. We know about this is a good piece of Lamar. All of this is good about Lamar. We know about his willingness to be a active member of the community. So sometimes too much in terms of like playing basketball at a local rec center on concrete with the kids. Lamar's for the kids. I think Lamar Jackson in the way his work ethic was talked about earlier in the winter, it's disappointing. It is. And if you're him, I'm sure that is something that's in the back of your mind. If you're him, I'm sure it's something that you're cognizant of. And look, it may not be something that he constantly talks about, but there's a chip on his shoulder, and it's got to be. It's got to be. It's a National Football League, man. Sometimes you got to shake a leg or lose one, as I like to say, man. And I think this year for Lamar is so pivotal. But as I started out saying, man, I think in this Declan Doyle offense, he is going to have a career year. Lamar Action Jackson, the 8-car, spoke post-practice, just about, how he is adjusting to this Declan Doyle offense.
Challenging me each and every day, whether it's footwork, rather it's just get the ball rolling. Let's get to the line of scrimmage, execute at a fast tempo. In the classroom, he told me that earlier, in the classroom, it's easy for you to just get this right, but when you get up to the line of scrimmage, it's execution fast enough, and I like that. Age, it doesn't mean anything because respect is respect. His title is coach, so I'm going to treat him like a coach. I don't care if he's 50, 29, 28. I don't feel like I know it all. Even if I feel like I know something, teach me. I want to see your point of view of this, so he's challenging us, and that's pretty much what I want, and I feel like every player should want that. You want the coach to bring the best out of you.
So here's what I'll say about that, right? Like, it's cool to be challenged now during this portion of the offseason, right? Everybody's on the same page. It's 75 and sunny. Everything's peachy. What I'm eager to see for the Ravens and for the Steelers here this year under Mike McCarthy, anytime you have new leadership, anytime a new culture is being established and being set, I don't judge you when everything's 75 and sunny. I judge you when crap hits the fan, the best way that I could put it, right? I want to see how this Ravens team, how the Steelers team responds to their first deficit, to their first turnover, to their first hint of adversity, whether that's in a game, whether that's with injury. The bottom line is you're going to have to go through that, throughout the course of the season, man. So I'm eager to see how they ultimately handle themselves in terms of what I think the Ravens can be for 2026. And I've repeated this like 6 times now, so I hope this isn't falling upon deaf ears. I don't think that I'm doing a bit when I say this. I mean this with every ounce of passion and belief that I got in my bones and my body. And you can make fun of me. You can laugh at me. You can say I'm tripping. You can say I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, you're just young and brash and dumb. I genuinely believe, and I know no one gives a rat's ass or believes in the Browns at all. For the first time since the 90s, and I'll say it again, I believe all 4 teams are going to make the postseason from a particular division, and I think that division is going to be this AFC North. Super duper bullish on the Ravens, super bullish on the Steelers. We haven't talked a lot about the Cincinnati Bengals. They're a group that I'm pretty intrigued by as well. The story in Cincinnati over the past several years is they can't stay healthy in the biggest moments of the season, and then 2, their inability to get teams off of the field defensively, their inability to impact opposing teams' quarterbacks, I think has really been their Achilles heel. I loved their offseason in terms of what they did, trying their best to revamp that front 7, going out and signing Jonathan Allen via free agency for the Minnesota Vikings, trading the number 10 overall pick to get sexy Dexter Lawrence, one of the best defensive tackles in the sport from the New York Giants. They bring in Boye Mafe, the star edge rusher from the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. You draft, you were able to just add to this front in a multitude of different ways, and I'm eager to see what they ultimately could be coming up in 2026. There's a kind of an unsung hero, is how I would put it, when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals from a defensive standpoint. First and foremost, I feel like you got to be a real sicko, is what we would call you, right? A real sicko, a real diehard football fan to know the starting corner of the Cincinnati Bengals. His name is DJ Turner, and the kid can play. Going up against Jamar Chase in practice over the past several seasons, you really saw that good-on-good work come to fruition this past year with how he was able to fare against opposing number 1 wide receivers. Big fan of what DJ Turner could be coming up in 2026. But this division as a whole, man, as I continue to say, is absolutely fascinating, and we'll see, as we get closer and closer, to the start of the regular season, as we continue to matriculate our way throughout the course of camp, we'll see, just how good this division actually is. Just getting rolling, though, here on Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in Charles and L. Willingham, getting you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're boots on the ground out in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Stop number 4 on our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour here at Steelers training camp. The first training camp under new head coach Mike McCarthy. We'll have a couple of guests stop by before we get out of here. Top of the 10 o'clock hour on the East Coast, our pal Emery Hunt, CBS Sports HQ, going to stop by as we take a spin around the National Football League, man. Smell that? You hear that? That's the freshly cut grass. The cleats are clacking off of the concrete. We are officially fully submerged into football season, man. Training camp is underway. Let's put a bookmark on the training camp talk for a second. There is a massive development out of the NCAA that we'll get to coming up on the other side. Don't go anywhere. This is Westwood One Sports.
Bucs QB Baker Mayfield doesn't have a new contract, and D lineman Vita Vea requested a trade. Will the Bucs stars be jumping ship? Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Lynnell Willingham.
All right, Saturday Morning Sports continues with the youngest in Charles. I know Willingham getting you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Coming live from stop number 4 on our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike McCarthy and company get ready to hit the practice field. Coming up in a few hours, it'll be, allegedly so he says, the final training camp of one Aaron Rodgers. Super duper excited to bring you all coverage from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, here at St. Vincent College. Make sure you continue to stay tapped in with the YouTube channel, Westwood One Sports Night. Like, subscribe, comment. You got YouTube shorts. You got, long-form segments, the live stream each and every show, and then throughout training camp, exclusive training camp coverage as we continue to roll throughout this training camp tour, man. I mentioned that there was some pretty significant news to get to out of the world of college football, and it's got to be big news for us to put the NFL on hold for a second during the midst of training camp. The news is this, man. The Big Ten and SEC agreed Friday night to support a Senate bill that seeks to regulate college sports. And the crux of this is, players that were deemed ineligible will get one extra year of eligibility. So if you were someone who enrolled in the class of 2022 and you did not get your extra year of eligibility, you will be afforded that now. I was honestly stunned to see the public support from the SEC and from the Big Ten, the two big powerhouse conferences, when it comes to the landscape of college sports. Let's just call it what it is. We're at a point right now with the NCAA where I don't know if the league that we all loved, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any salvaging it. First and foremost, y'all know how I feel. Absolutely hate. Whenever the government gets involved with pro sports, it's something that's happened, more frequently, in my opinion, than maybe it should have. But, the reality is, man, I think the biggest issue currently plaguing college sports, we'll have a bigger picture conversation off of the news that was divulged yesterday. A judge in Colorado and a Nashville chancellor issued rulings Friday that will give 30 basketball players a 5th season of eligibility and prevent the NCAA from keeping them out of the transfer portal, man. If you are not privy to this news, that to me has rocked the landscape of college sports, then go ahead and listen up and tap in, man. I was stunned when I saw the notification come across my ticker. I believe if I'm not mistaken, was it On 3? Was it On 3 the first, outlet that I saw that tweeted it out? Yeah, it was. So it was, like I mentioned, Judge Charlotte Sweeney ordering the NCAA to declare eligible, all class of 2022 athletes who exhausted 4 seasons this spring. And I think the most shocking development, like I said in all of this, is the fact that the SEC in the Big Ten are backing this move and backing this decision when the two biggest branches of I was going to say the two biggest branches of government, when the two biggest, most important conferences, in college athletics are on the same page with this ruling. It, to me, for lack of a better phrase, man, college sports, the NCAA is cooked. It's the best way that I could put it. The NCAA, to me, is cooked. I think if there's some governing body, everyone keeps talking about a commissioner for each sport, for each league, commissioner for college basketball, commissioner for college football. All that's great. Why don't we have the actual powers that be from the NCAA put their big boy britches on and actually make some decisions here? It feels like all of these decisions end up going to court based off of the NCAA being, unwilling to kind of, put their foot in the ground in terms of standing on business with the rulings that they ultimately come out with. The fact that, we continue to see judges in the courts continue to overrule the NCAA, like that's the problem to me. To be a league that has no power, and to be such a massive entity the way that the NCAA is, they should have all the power. It should be their world, and we should just be living in it. But the crazy part about it, if you're someone that's followed college athletics for years, right? This is nothing new. This is what the NCAA has come to. And as much as I want to, pretend as if I'm surprised with the ruling that came out last night and the backing of the SEC and the Big Ten, I'm not surprised, because this is where we are. This is the current landscape of college athletics. The inmates are running the asylum. There are no rules. They are flying by the seat of their pants. We were talking about, the way that someone from Ravens practice described the offense last year to this year. They're freestyling last year under Top Monken. And for the past 20 years, it feels like, the NCAA has been freestyling in terms of not standing on business. I keep using that phrase, standing on business, but y'all know what I mean. It's sad, man. It's a sad, sad spot to be in. It overshadows, honestly, what was a pretty entertaining week in the world of college football, as you had Big Ten Media Day. I tell you all the time, and I'm a sicko, right? Like, sometimes I'll fall asleep to thunderstorm sounds and rain, depending on my mood, man. But other times, I'll fall asleep to the dulcet tones of one Curt Cignetti. What he had to say this week out at Big Ten Media Day. I don't know if anyone's surprised. Like, you shouldn't be surprised at this point. This is just who he is. He's probably one of the best sound bites in all of sports right now. And the thing that I really appreciate, right, the thing that I really appreciate with Curt Cignetti is this is, 110% him. He's not faking it. This isn't, some rah-rah podium, shtick so that the media likes him. No, this is who he is, man. You talk to folks, in and around that Hoosiers program, same guy all the time. And if you talk to any athlete out there at any level, whether it's high school, whether it's college, or whether it's the pros, one of the most important traits that you want for your head coach, man, is be the same dude day in and day out when you address us and when you enter this facility, man. And I think Curt Cignetti, really, really has mastered that, man. Curt Cignetti, as we know, making headlines out at Big Ten Media Day. Here's some of the best from the best coach in my mind in all of college football.
The Big Ten is the best league in football. and a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
Mic drop. That's what the kids would say. All right? I mean, it honestly makes me want to run through a wall. If I'm being totally honest, every time I hear him speak, and if you're watching right now on our YouTube live stream, you can see it, man. I'll put my forearm up. The hairs on my arms are quite literally standing up, ladies and gentlemen. That's how I feel about Coach Sig, man. As far as Indiana and their chances in 2026, it feels like whenever we talk Big Ten football, it's Ohio State, it's Oregon. I want to remind the country that the Indiana Hoosiers last year, for one, absolutely came out of nowhere, and they're not to be counted out going into the 2026 season. Over the last couple of years, what Curt Cignetti has done, laying the foundation, building a culture up there, they're going to have a shot each and every year, man. Abusing the portal. And when I say abusing the portal, I mean that in a complimentary way, man. Their ability to go out and find, the best, quote-unquote, free agent talent across the country. It's a skill. It's a skill. Because here's the thing. We keep talking about, and that's why, damn it, that's why they're the best. We talked about Coach Prime and what he was able to do walking into people's living rooms. Last year, Bill Belichick thought he was going to do the same thing in Chapel Hill. There's a method to the madness, man, and I think Cignetti and his ability to relate to the players, his ability to get the players, to buy in and to get the absolute best out of them, I think it's a skill. What we started off the conversation with, though, was the massive story that broke last night out of the NCAA, a judge ruling that players that, started their college career in 2022, they've got eligibility. We'll take your calls on that next.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Lynnell Willingham.
Still rolling with you as we get you up to 11 a.m. Eastern time here on Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham, rocking out with you, taking you coast to coast as we're live on location, baby, out at Steelers Camp, stop number 4 on our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour. Getting it up close and personal look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers begin practice coming up. If you're watching on the live stream, it's about to get very interesting here. The morning is getting a little bit later in the morning, and the bugs are out. Normally when we do this program, I'm indoors. I'll just peel the curtain back all the way. Your boy is out here braving the elements. I don't like centipedes. I don't like bees. I don't like gnats. I don't like roaches. Bugs are not for me. Nobody
Bees can go to hell. Bees can absolutely roast. You woke me up. I cannot stand bees.
Do you have an allergy?
No, I thought I did. So, all right, let's peel the curtain back completely as you're fighting the elements here. When I was 5 years old, I was in a backseat of my mom's car, and my little brother was 4. A bee flew into the car as we were driving by the park, and I'm like, my brother and I were like, what the hell is this? The bee stung him on the nose, and he let out a blood-curdling cry that I have never, since my 41 years of existence, have never heard like that, ever. And since I have been petrified of bees. No, that's a mild cry.
Not a wham.
I'm talking about, like, he just got stabbed. He just got shot like 9 times. Get rich or die trying prior to that. So he let out this insane cry, scream. And my brother grew up to be a pretty tough dude. Like, he's like linebacker built. And I ain't never seen him ever cry like that. So I avoid bees. Not at all I avoid bees. My wife can tell you, I will be walking with our goddaughter, my dog. I will be walking with the president of the United States or whatever, and there's a bee that flies by me, and I book it. I run like no business. I'd rather get shot again than get stung by a bee.
Oh, my goodness. Now, that is that's a little crazy. That's probably taking it to the extreme. I would probably take a bee sting over a bullet wound, but I get the point that you're trying to make, man. If you're just now joining us, we appreciate you doing so as we're coming to you nationwide on the AM, FM dial on our over 200-plus affiliates. You can check out the YouTube stream as well. Just search Westwood One Sports Night. Remember, all throughout training camp, YouTube exclusive content on the Westwood One Sports Night's YouTube account. We'll get to some of the YouTube exclusive content here in just a minute. If you're watching on the live stream, like this is the time to come check us out. Search Westwood One Sports Night. Literally, my traps are gonna be inflamed by the time this show is over as I continue to swat and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Before we get back into the National Football League, I do want to double click and apologize too. So peeling the curtain back, I'm awful. I'm dealing with the elements out here. I was kind of distracted going into the last break, and I got cut off by the big voice guy. It never happens, but I'm gonna apologize for it because I'm a real one. Let's get back into the NCAA, though. And I do want you all's opinion on the phones on this at 310-840-4910. If you are just now waking up with us here this morning, first and foremost, good morning to you. There's a story out of the NCAA that is absolutely rocked the world of college football and college sports. Judge Charlotte Sweeney of the U.S. District Court of Colorado has granted a class-wide preliminary injunction that requires the NCAA to declare eligible all high school class of 2022 athletes who exhausted their fourth year of eligibility coming up this past spring. Meaning, if you were – this is crazy. If you were a senior playing college athletics last year and you graduated high school in 2022, you're being granted a fifth year of eligibility. You're being granted a fifth year of eligibility. Some of you out there are probably asking, well, where does this come from? Where does this come from? So I'm about to open up Pandora's box here, so bear with me. On June the 23rd, the NCAA approved a new eligibility model that allows 5 seasons of competition over a 5-year period, and it begins with their full-time enrollment or the academic year following the 19th birthday, whichever occurs first. That's the official language, meaning that instead, and Carlos with a K, I would love for you to chime in on this for a second as we try to sort through this. Am I understanding this properly in terms of now, based off of the ruling that was passed on the 23rd, you now get 5 years of eligibility in the world of college sports? That's what's happening here in real time. That's what we're bearing witness to, correct?
Yeah, pretty much get an extra year. I mean, listen, if Carson Beck can get 7 years in college, why can't anybody else get 5? So, yeah, I don't know what the long-term ramifications are going to be, but it's pretty much everybody's going to get an extra year.
The long-term ramifications, I can see it. If you're a college freshman, if I was an athletic program, this is how I would now move. If we knew that our guys are going to have 5 years of eligibility, can I tell you, I would redshirt pretty much every freshman that enters my program.
Yep, exactly.
You would 100% just take a gap year off the rip, get your body right, get in the weight room, so on and so forth. That would be my plan, right, if I was an athletic director. That's how I would use it to my benefit. You know who's the big winner in this, though? And I'm not giving away state secrets when I say it. The college athlete is the clear-cut big winner. When you think about, you know what that means? That's now 5 years of NIL paychecks that you can now collect if you choose to be, you know, a college athlete. I'm stunned by the ruling I'm not stunned by the ruling, rather. I'm stunned by the backing of the Big Ten in the SEC. It just feels like, though, with the current landscape of college football, not college football, college athletics, we need someone to come save college sports. Every day it feels like it's a new apocalypse that happens with college athletics, man. And as we sit here a couple of weeks away from the start of the college football season, I guess when there's competition happening, maybe the conversation and things get quieter, I guess, in terms of the complaints the folks have. But, man, when college football season rolls around, don't forget what's happening right now in real time when it comes to the world of college athletics. I want to open up the phones on this at 310-840-4910. If you are just now joining us, here is the news. Judge Charlotte Sweeney of the U.S. District Court of Colorado has granted a class-wide preliminary injunction that requires the NCAA to declare eligible all high school class of 2022 athletes who exhausted 4 years of eligibility this spring. As we sit here with the current landscape of college athletics, one, do you think there is a solution to fixing college athletics? And then two, knowing this ruling that came from Judge Charlotte Sweeney, how surprised are you that the SEC in the Big Ten backed this ruling? 310-840-4910. Because to me, that's the most surprising part about all of this, is that the two most powerful conferences in the world of college athletics basically said, oh, you're damn right. Hell yeah. We're on board with it. Why is that?
Because you're about to see the SEC and the Big 12, whatever. You're about to see a bunch of dudes that went undrafted in the NFL come back. Guys that did not sign a deal, those guys are going right back to Texas, Alabama, Auburn. All these schools are about to get borderline NFL pro talent influx back into their rosters this season.
And that's why we're the best.
It's just not good for but to me, it's not good for the sport, man. It's not good for the sport. It's muddying the playing field. Let the kids be kids is what I say, man. Go play in a 40 and under league if you're really that geeked up to play college athletics after your eligibility's over, man. Stop it. If you're wondering, like, is Lynnell on a racetrack right now, if you're listening on radio on one of our over 200-plus affiliates, no, I am not at the Indy 500. I'm actually on the campus of St. Vincent College in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Stop number 4 on our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour, paying a visit to Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Practice going to get underway in a couple of hours. We will have you covered with wall-to-wall coverage of Steelers training camp here this morning and here this afternoon. Super-duper excited to put the Steelers and the entire AFC North under the microscope, as we did a little bit earlier on in the show. Programming note, as I mentioned, 50 minutes from now, Emory Hunt, CBS Sports HQ, going to join the program as we take a spin around the National Football League. If you're listening on radio, I encourage you to check out the YouTube stream as well. Just search Westwood One Sports Night. You will be entertained by me swatting gnats, bugs, mosquitoes, whatever the hell weird bugs they got out here in Latrobe. Get it the hell away from me. I've been spoiled the last couple of days. Can I be honest, guys? I've been spoiled. You know, this is my 4th stop on the training camp tour. Clearly, though, and maybe this is me just talking trash about St. Vincent as a Bethany College alum, I just can't help myself. The bugs out here in Latrobe, nasty, trifling. Every other adjective that you can use to describe this, it's awful. I'm swatting bugs. I'm bearing the elements. But we're out here, man. Excited to bring you all coverage from Steelers practice. I do want to get back into the NFL as we roll throughout this 9 a.m. hour. But I do want to take your calls, though. 310-840-4910. The massive news that we got last night out of the world of college athletics. Judge Charlotte Sweeney of the U.S. District Court of Colorado granting a class-wide preliminary injunction that requires the NCAA to declare eligible all high school athletes of the 2022 class who exhausted their 4th year of eligibility this spring. Kind of an open-ended question for you all at 310-840-4910. The big news in all of this to me is the fact that the Big Ten, as well as the SEC, came out and publicly backed the college sports bill. I'm stunned, man. I'm stunned where we're at this point. I'm stunned that the government. Let me use a different adjective instead of stunned. I'm disappointed is the best way that I can describe it. The way that the government had to get involved with this, and this is obviously something that's spearheaded by Maria Cantwell of Washington and then Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. If you all aren't familiar, man, the Protect College Sports Act now getting public backing from the SEC and the Big Ten, as we know, probably the two most important conferences in all of college athletics. And I know there's some Big 12 basketball fans out there that are saying, hey, what about us? What about us? I hear you. 310-840-4910 is the number. What do you make of the SEC and the Big Ten publicly backing this legislation from Congress, the Protect College Sports Act? How do you feel about the SEC and Big Ten publicly backing it? And then kind of an open-ended big picture question here. How confident are you in the future of college athletics? 310-840-4910, because I'll tell you where I think we're headed. I'll tell you where I think we're headed, specifically in the world of college football. I believe we're going to see every college sports fan, specifically college football, every college football fan's worst nightmare come to fruition. I think we're on the doorstep of witnessing a realignment of sorts when it comes to the NCAA. I think we're close to seeing, let me be more specific, I think we're closer and closer to seeing the Big Ten and SEC kind of take their ball and go home is the best way that I can describe it, because they've got everything that they need to function on their own without the fake guidance. I'm going to call it what it is, the fake guidance of the NCAA. 310-840-4910 is the number. Let's go to Jameer, who wants to chime in from New York. What's going on, Jameer? Welcome in.
What's up, boss? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Yeah, so my initial thought, man, I just honestly feel like they're doing a service to the athletes because they're giving them that extra year. But, of course, just like you're saying, man, SEC, Big Ten going to get those players, and it's just going to continue being those two teams in the right. Championship fighting for that. And it's just like the more money, the more people they're going to get. But it helps out the players. A lot of kids probably had to take the red shirt, or now they get that fifth year, so it's just better off for them.
And this is why, Jameer, I'm kind of torn on it, right? Because you obviously want to advocate for the athlete, but you also look at it from the perspective of, well, damn, what about the power balance that just doesn't exist right now within the world of college athletics?
Yeah,
it's the old saying is
we already know
the old saying. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Mm-hmm. I was about to say I don't know if you're familiar with the saying. Money wins all wars, bro. That's
yes, sir.
That's the that's the old saying, and it sucks that is kind of what this has come to with the world of college athletics, man. It is all about the dollar. 310-840-4910 is the number. Appreciate you chiming in, however you're doing so. If you're checking us out on one of our over 200-plus affiliates out there on the AM/FM dial, we welcome you in to Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in charge. I know Willingham. Remember, you can check out the YouTube live stream as well. Just search Westwood One Sports Night. Perfect time to do so, man. We're bringing you YouTube-exclusive content as we continue our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour. Stop number 4 brings us to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, home of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and most importantly, the final training camp, so he says, of one Aaron Rodgers, and then Mike McCarthy putting his fingerprints on this Steelers organization. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage all throughout the afternoon and the early morning on our Westwood One Sports Night YouTube channel. Right now, though, putting a bookmark on the NFL conversation because I think the NCAA has officially lost this damn mind. 310-840-4910 is the number. If you're just now joining us here, the massive news that sent shockwaves through the world of the NCAA last night. Judge Charlotte Sweeney of the U.S. District Court of Colorado granting a class-wide preliminary injunction that requires the NCAA to declare eligible all high school class of 2022 athletes who exhausted their 4 years of eligibility wrapping up this spring. The even crazier part about this, the ruling itself is nuts, but I think the icing on the cake, or the gut punch rather. Let me not use icing on the cake. The gut punch with this entire situation is the fact that last night we saw the Big Ten and SEC release a statement to support, the Protect College Sports Act, and I'm stunned over just the NCAA's lack of backbone. And I don't know if I should be stunned at this point, because this has become common practice. This is just what we should be accustomed to when it comes to the NCAA. They don't want to make the big boy, difficult, tough decisions. They don't, man. That's not what they're about. They're about letting, they're about letting the courts go on and make these decisions. We saw it with the Trinidad Chambliss situation. We saw what happened with Brendan Sorsby. It's sad to watch, man, because as I've gotten older and followed college sports more closely, and as I say, I've gotten older, you're probably thinking, is he like 15? No. But at first, I'll be honest with you, like when I first started to indulge in college athletics, the backdrop of like scandals and NIL and punishments and all that, I didn't give a rat's ass about that. I cared about the hoop. I cared about the product on the field or on the court. So as I've, dove into, kind of the semantics of things when it comes to the world of college athletics, maybe, some other fans out there feel the same as well. I was not aware of just how dire of a situation it currently is right now in the world of college athletics, man. We may be on the verge of witnessing college sports be changed forever. And to take it a step further, maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of the end of the NCAA. 310-840-4910 is the number. What do you make of the SEC and Big Ten publicly backing the Protect College Sports Act? And then the ruling that came out yesterday from Judge Charlotte Sweeney of the U.S. District Court of Colorado, granting a preliminary injunction that requires the NCAA to require eligible all high school class of 2022 athletes who use their fourth-year eligibility this year. 310-840-4910 is the number. Your thoughts on the ruling, and then what do you make of the Big Ten and SEC publicly supporting the Protect College Sports Act? John is in South Carolina wanting to check in. John, what's going on?
Good things, bro. Always hearing you is fun. Hey, on this college thing, the 5-year eligibility, does that mean they're going to start giving out like 5-year scholarships out of high school because you can do 5 years of playing, semi-pro sports in the NCAA? Or, how are they going to do that? Give a guy a 5-year scholarship? You got to pay for your 5th year. You can take one class and you're still eligible for football?
Yeah, look, the potential
crazy question.
like drawbacks of this is nuts, and I appreciate the call. I don't know what the ultimate trickle down effect is going to be. If we're being real, I just look at it initially from the athlete's perspective. From the athlete's perspective, it's great. More NIL opportunities, more opportunities to play, more opportunities to develop your skill to where you're good enough to make the pros. That's always going to be a benefit for the athlete. What I think is going to end up happening, though, I think the SEC and Big Ten being in lockstep backing the Protect College Sports Act, man, I think we're getting ready to witness the beginning of the end. They're going to separate as soon as they can. 310-840-4910 if you have any more thoughts on the big-time news out of college athletics last night. We're going to take a quick time out as we've totally blown the clock. We had a lot more to get to here on Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest and Charles Lynnell Willingham. We'll get back into the National Football League coming up on the other side of the break. No QB drama here in the Steel City with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but there is some drama out in Tampa with the Bucs. We'll give you the latest on where contract talks stand between the Bucs and Baker Mayfield next here on Westwood One Sports.
The Hall of Fame game is Thursday. Panthers, Cardinals. And the official start of the NFL preseason. Hear it on the Westwood One Sports app from your home of the NFL. Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Lynnell Willingham.
You heard the big voice guy, often touted as the most trustworthy member of the program here on Westwood One Sports. It is the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham, taking you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We are live on location out at stop number 4 of our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour out in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Out in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the final training camp for future first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers. So he says. We'll see how 2026 goes for Pittsburgh and whether or not he actually hangs it up. Rodgers divulging earlier this week that, it was wifey that allowed him the opportunity to come back and play under Coach Mike McCarthy here for a final swan song in 2026. Like I said, though, out here boots on the ground at Pittsburgh Steelers practice. They'll hit the practice field coming up in about 2 hours at about 11:30. Remember, like I've said all show long, man, like, subscribe, comment, and search Westwood One Sports Night on YouTube to get our exclusive training camp coverage. You can check out the live stream per usual. You're seeing me swat, and I'm not practicing like D-line drills or anything like that. I'm swatting because the gnats out here are gnatting. I'll be honest. And I'm not, look, I stand at like 6'2", 280 pounds, so a gnat shouldn't bother me at all, but hot damn. I feel like I deserve, well, look, I'm not going to say that over there, but the powers that be know what I was about to say. To bear these elements on the behalf of Westwood One, come on, man. Real grinding. Someone wrote in the YouTube chat, Lynnell Swattingham. You damn right. And here's the thing, my SWAT rate, now that that's going to be a thing, we'll be tracking SWAT rates now throughout the rest of the show. My SWAT rate, I feel like it ain't even good. I feel like I'm just moving my arms, doing absolutely nothing. If I'm being real, I don't think it's really working. I could deal with it around my face, right, where I could see it. Oh, then it said Nattingham. Lynnell Nattingham. You know what? Y'all going to stop playing with me, man. You could get it on the Joan and Roasting as well if you get in the YouTube live stream. Just search Westwood One Sports Night. That's if you're listening to us on one of our over 200-plus affiliates out there nationwide on the AM and FM dial. I do want to get back into the National Football League coming up here in a second, but we do got a couple of calls on the big news that we got out of the NCAA last night, man, and it was a stunner. The reaction that you saw on social media from a bunch of different folks, UConn head coach Dan Hurley pouring out his emotion on social media saying, somebody please come and fix college sports. It's a complete doo-doo emoji show. Dan Hurley never shy to speak his mind and give his opinion. Judge Charlotte Sweeney of the U.S. District Court of Colorado granting a class-wide preliminary injunction that requires the NCAA to declare eligible all high school class of 2022 athletes who exhausted their 4 seasons of eligibility wrapping up this spring, meaning you don't get an extra year. And the other piece of this ruling is those kids that come back for that 5th year, they are not prevented and restricted from entering the NCAA's transfer portal. The Big Ten and the SEC almost giving a vote of confidence to this decision based off of the statement that they released supporting the Protect College Sports Act. That's kind of where I want to focus on here. 310-840-4910. How surprised are you that the NCAA, released this joint statement supporting the Protect College Sports Act? And then are you on the same page as me? I think we have officially hit a spot where we're reaching the beginning of the end when it comes to college athletics, man. I think we're going to see it within the next maybe 3-4 years. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to branch off from the rest of the NCAA, and there'll be other schools that follow. Notre Dame will probably be a school that follow. They don't have a conference or a home. Just to rattle some off the top of my head, but that's where I think college athletics is heading, man. I firmly believe that the NCAA is cooked, man. I believe was that Art Rooney that just rolled by on the golf cart? Wow, that's what happens when you're live on location out at Steelers practice, man. This has been something. The fellas are starting to file in, to the St. Vincent locker room. I'm sure this is their athletic complex, and guys are riding over on scooters, bikes, electric bikes. You've seen a bunch of different methods of transportation out here in Latrobe is what I would say. We'll get you the latest from Steelers practice a little bit later on in the afternoon with some of our YouTube exclusive content. But practice gets underway in exactly 2 hours at 11:30. So make sure you continue to follow us and interact with us on social media, searching up Westwood One Sports Night. Let's get to the phones. 310-840-4910. Roger is in Dallas. Roger, what do you think about the future of the NCAA, pal?
Lynnell, it's probably the same, isn't it? I mean, the NCAA it's pro sports anyway. The football is pro sports. Look at the complexes these guys have. It's been a pro
money
sport
they're making.
forever anyway.
Yeah.
But is that across all of NCAA? Is that including gymnastics and field hockey and
I believe
else?
I believe it's everybody. If you graduated high school in 2022 and you wrapped up your athletic playing career this past spring, you're getting an extra year eligibility no matter what the sport is. So
if I'm a freshman right now and I'm not that good and this guy's coming back, I'm out, right? My scholarship's gone. Because they have to have a scholarship, don't they? So what about all these guys that are on scholarship already?
So here's the thing, right? Because they haven't been restricted from entering the transfer portal, I don't know if we'll see that issue. It's a fascinating conversation, though, Raj, in terms of just the overall trickle-down effect and impact that it has on the athletes. You brought up a good point. I'm looking at it as a net positive for the athletes. Another year of eligibility means another year of NIL money, another year to hone your skills, and another year to perfect your craft.
If you're good.
To potentially, potentially if you're good enough to make the pros. But here's the thing. You know how much development and growth you can see in a college athlete within the span of a season. We see it all the time in college basketball and college football. All you need, essentially, is that extra year sometimes to get you over the hump and make you a pro. So it'll be fascinating, man. Do you see the SEC and Big Ten branching off here?
Oh, of course. They're going to have a super college.
Feels like the play. It feels like the play, doesn't it, Raj?
Isn't the SEC already imposing their own rules for their own games? Isn't like their pass interference is going to be 10 yards instead of 15 yards if the SEC are playing each other? And when they're not playing each other, then it's the normal rules?
It's just another example, Roger, of the inmates running the asylum when it comes to the NCAA. I appreciate the call. You want to talk about an association, a group of men and leaders that have no backbone? That is what the NCAA is. The NCAA is at this point. No backbone. The inmates run the asylum. The judges. I mean, honestly, you might as well not even have a commissioner. I mean, if the judges and the courts are going to be able to come in and overrule every decision that you make, what's the point of having the decision-making power? Can I put this in context? I'm the bachelor of Westwood One Sports Night, right? 28, single. A lot of you out there that listen are married. Could you imagine if every time your significant other told you to do something, there was a lawyer or a judge, rather, that came in and put in an injunction saying, no, you don't have to listen to what your wife or husband said. You'll all be pissed. It's the same thing here to me with the NCAA, man. 310-840-4910 is the number. Let's get to my guy Rob out in Florida wanting to check in. Rob, what's going on, man? We got Rob?
You're the man, Lynnell.
What's up, Rob? How you doing, buddy?
I agree with you. It's a disgrace. If you add up all the things that help the kids and then you add up all the things that just go for the money and don't help the kids, it's not even close. It's a disgrace and horrendous, and it's all going to be bad as usual for the kids.
No, for sure, bro. I definitely agree with you. And this is the tough part to stomach, man. It's kind of what you just alluded to. It's not like it's all bad. And I do want to give the NCAA their credit at times where credit is due. It's not all bad. I love the fact that we have now legally agreed to pay the players. It should have been a thing that happened years ago, but, like, they get credit for that. But outside of it, man, I agree. If you're doing a plus-minus Venn diagram, man, it is not a good look when it comes to the NCAA and their powers to be. I appreciate the call as always, man. 310-840-4910. I think, seriously, though, like the most disappointing part of all of it is just their inability to kind of, stand on business, man. We're out live on location in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the home of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp. I mentioned it, man. Dudes riding in on bikes, dudes riding in on scooters. I may just start doing play-by-play of player arrivals, guys. This is probably the most exciting part of the morning to this point. Whoever's got a lineup across from Cam Hayward today, looking at the growl on his face, I feel awful for you, is what I would say, man. 310-840-4910. I'm sure a vet of his magnitude doesn't get, steamed up for training camp at this point in his career, man. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage of Steelers camp on YouTube as well as in the back end of the show here on Westwood One Sports. 310-840-4910 is the number. Gordon chiming in from Honolulu wanting to check in. Gordon, what's going on, man? Good morning.
Hey, yeah, I was thinking, because the NCAA learned from college sports in other countries, so I looked it up, and basically there's nothing like this anywhere in the world. So it's like we can't do like a best practices thing, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean they're their own thing. There's nothing like it. It's a unique group, and I'm gonna get fancy and say it's a unique governing body. But I wish there was someone else for them to look at. They do have models to look at. This is the thing that the NCAA's got to stop pretending. The idea of the NCAA being a amateur sport at this point is laughable and quite literally like just not true, because the moment you begin to get paid for your services, to me, you're no longer an amateur, man. So I don't know. I just am saddened, I guess, is the word that I would use, man. I'm saddened that this has gotten to this point when it comes to the NCAA, man. It feels like, and I appreciate the call, and in full honesty, man, to me the past couple of years, I'll say dating back to like COVID, is when I really began to lock in with college athletics, if I'm being frank with you all. I love the NFL. I love the NBA. But for years, man, I wasn't a big college sports fan. COVID really changed that for me. And it changed a lot for everybody, didn't it? I think just once you begin to understand the power dynamic that exists within the landscape of the NCAA, once you begin to realize that the powers that be are totally spineless, you understand why, college athletics is in this situation, man. 310-840-4910. Charles calling out of Miami wanting to check in. Charles, what's going on, man?
All right, so you hit on the spineless part, because my comment was going to be the NCAA is run like FIFA by a bunch of greedy cowards who just care about the money and see the dollar signs. They don't care about the kids. It's never about the kids.
Right.
They put in stuff there to make it seem like that fifth year is good for the kids, but who does that really benefit? The NFL, because you're going to have older and mature players coming ready to perform, and it benefits the teams like an Alabama, like an Ohio State, where you can say, hey, Jeremiah, one more year, bro, one more year. I'll get you $10 million, one more year. You're not going to make that in the NFL. Stay one more year. And you get to keep these kids longer and break their bodies down longer. And then when they get to the NFL, yeah, their lifespan isn't as much, but they're more mature, more developed. Like you said, that extra year helps them. That is the
But here's
really
the thing.
the
No one really
to help the NFL and
does
those
anyone,
big teams.
do you really think like those leagues need help? I mean,
No,
who really
They-
needs the
they're-
assistant?
they're
It's the
benefit-
kids. It's the players.
They're benefit by association. I agree. They don't care. They're
Oh,
like,
of
whatever.
course.
This only helps
Right,
us.
you know.
They only help us. But I do think that Alabama looks at it, the Miamis, and then look, the SEC and Big they've been making this move for a while to separate. Rod said earlier, Super Conference, that's been going on for a while. And they're going to pull the Notre Dames, the Miamis, the Clemsons out of all these Bobo programs.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time before it happens. I just wonder if you're a thoroughbred, diehard college football, college basketball fan, when this, separation happens, are you still going to be locked in? Do you still engage and relate to the product in the same way, man? That's going to be the question.
No.
Charles, I appreciate you, man. We're up against the clock, so I got to let you run. 310-840-4910 is the number. Continuing our Westwood One Sports Night Training Camp Tour, stop number 4 has us in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the home of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp. Could be the last training camp for one Aaron Rodgers if you take his word for it. Mike McCarthy era underway here in Latrobe. We will have wall-to-wall coverage of Steelers training camp all throughout the afternoon. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to collect and consume all that content. Just search Westwood One Sports Night. Let's do this. Coming up in 18 minutes, we'll be joined by our pal Emery Hunt of CBS Sports HQ as we take a spin around the National Football League. When we come back, though, I do want to get into my biggest observation from Giants camp. I mentioned this was my fourth stop on the tour. My third stop was yesterday, and I was out in West Virginia, Giants country. It was interesting to say the least. A lot of people look at the Giants as a sexy worst to first pick. I'll tell you why I'm drinking the Kool-Aid all of a sudden when it comes to the New York Giants. I know, Carlos, I'm drinking it. That's next.
Damn straight.
The Raiders are not going with Fernando Mendoza.
Kirk Cousins is the starting quarterback.
But how long will their first overall pick really be on the sideline? Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Lynnell Willingham.
Yes, indeed. Party continues here on Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham, getting you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're just now tapping in to the program, welcome in. However you choose to lock in, we appreciate you being here. You can check us out on one of our over 200-plus affiliates out there nationwide. You can check us out on the Westwood One Sports app. You can also check us out via our YouTube live stream. Just search Westwood One Sports Night. You can see, if you're watching the live stream, I am out on location, stop number 4 for our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour. It brings us to pay a visit to the Pittsburgh Steelers out here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, on the campus of One St. Vincent. If you're just now joining the show, and if you've never heard me go on my spiel and tangent and rant about how much I hated St. Vincent and how much I continue to hate St. Vincent, then lucky for you. I'll spare you on that. But no, I was just talking to someone within the media department here with Pittsburgh, and just one of the kind of not talked about things here that the Steelers do, and other teams do this for camp as well. The fact that they're going off to a college campus for training camp, going to a different location for training camp, it's unique, man. It's how you build the camaraderie. It's how you build that brothership and that camaraderie, man. So it's awesome. I told you I'd continue to give you play-by-play of guys walking into the facility. Jalen Ramsey just passed by, gave a little nod and a heads up over to the set and the program. So super duper cool of him to do that. I am geeked up though for practice, man. Yesterday, being out in Giants country was refreshing, is how I would put it. Going to any facility that's not the Commanders facility in Ashburn is just a treat, because holy cow, are they behind the times in terms of their practice facility based off of the rest of the teams in the NFL. But I know Josh Harris and that long money of his will get things back on track in the nation's capital sooner rather than later. They'll have the facilities that the other teams have across the league. But I do want to give credit to the Giants, man. I was out there yesterday at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, where they're holding training camp. First training camp under head coach John Harbaugh. Just from talking to the different staffers out there, the number one difference that they noticed last year, Brian Dable really didn't give a rat's ass about what was reported on, what was covered. They were allowing people to record the 11-on-11 team sessions. It was a free-for-all out there. It was like Fort Knox yesterday at Giants practice. They want you to have your phone in your pocket. You can't live tweet the practice. It is, it's tough, but I understand it. There's a competitive, balance that you try to maintain as an NFL franchise. So I totally get it. John Harbaugh knows best. He's a winner, and that's what Giants fans should be excited about. My number one takeaway yesterday from Giants camp, that team, it's a group that has an identity and a DNA of a team that's going to run the football. They're huge up front along the offensive line. They spent first-round draft capital on CeCe Maui Noah out of Miami. What they brought in Patrick Ricard, who is basically a extra damn offensive lineman. So that was, very apparent yesterday. Through the first couple of days of camp, it feels like it's been difficult to get a read on what Jackson Dart is here in year number 2. Because, like I said, death, taxes, and the New York Giants are going to run the football coming up in 2026. As a result of that, yesterday, a lot of run install. Really paid close attention to Dart during the 7-on-7 stuff. During the 11-on-11, I mean, trying to block that Giants defensive front is absolutely hell. Kayvon Thibodeau rushing from the inside. The fact that Denard Wilson's finding a way to keep Tibbs, Burns, Carter, on the field at the same time, it's special, man. And it's why that pass rush, I think, has a chance to be really, really formidable coming up in 2026. The other thing that stood out as well, the speed that they have at linebacker between Tremaine Edmonds and Arvell Reese, that may be the fastest linebacking core in all of the National Football League. Cam Scadaboo gave me the soundbite of a lifetime yesterday, saying, it's kind of intimidating going up against that linebacker core as you're trying to install your run game and your offense, man. So hearing it from the horse's mouth, the Giants are going to be an interesting group coming up in 2026, man. I am all of a sudden, I guess I'm pretty bullish on what the Giants can be. And when I say bullish, I'm doing that just to make our guy Carlos with a K happy. I don't know if I'm bullish on the Giants. I just don't think they're going to be the bottom feeders like I thought.
Playoffs.
Oh, here we go. It's 5 o'clock somewhere is what the old saying is, man. Final hour of power coming up here on another installment of Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in Charles and Willingham, getting you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. On the other side of the break, we'll be joined by our pal Emery Hunt, CBS Sports HQ, taking a trip around the NFL next.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Lynnell Willingham.
Party continues as we enter our final hour of power here on Westwood One Sports. Lynnell Willingham getting you up to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Stop number 4 of our Westwood One Sports Night Training Camp Tour brings us to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, home of training camp for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the final training camp for legendary quarterback Aaron Rodgers, and the first training camp for Mike McCarthy as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll continue to keep our conversation on the National Football League as we enter this final hour of the program. We go out to the guest hotline for the first time this show, where we find our pal Emery Hunt, CBS Sports HQ. Give him a follow on the X app at FBall Game Plan. Emery, happy training camp to you, my friend.
Happy training camp, Mike. Always a pleasure to be on the show.
For sure, man. I always appreciate you locking in with us, man. I actually want to start with you where I was yesterday. I was in Giants country. Well, not really in Giants country. It was at the Greenbrier out in West Virginia, checking out Giants practice. And the number one thing, and you can speak to this, Emery, is you're someone that's covered the Giants for years and always make your way out to their practice. Fort Knox around there nowadays, man. It is not a Brian Dable-led football team. You can't have your phone out. The access is super limited, but on the field, I think the 2026 Giants have the chance to be an impressive group. Emery, my biggest takeaway from practice yesterday, brother, is that team has the DNA of an offense that wants to run the football, that's going to run the football. When you look at this Giants offensive line, bringing in CeCe Mawanoa, you bring back Jermaine Illuminor, do you think that 5 for them up front is formidable enough for them to live and die by the running game at 26?
I believe so, honestly, man. When you think about the front 5, and I would even stretch that out to the front 8, when you think about, the potential of Evan Neal with this new regime, Daniel Faalele, who with Harbaugh from the Baltimore Ravens, and, J.C. Davis, the guy they drafted at 6'4", 335. When you add those guys to the mix, too, it not only increases the competition, but it shows you what they want to do as a football team. And Harbaugh touched on it when he was at OTAs and mini camps, and he kind of spoke to this every time we were out there. He said, hey, I want the Giants to look like Giants. And it's a simple term. Big people push around little people, and he wants to build, a big person, front up there. So when you think about, his DNA, what he did at Baltimore, what they were known for, what the Final Four teams in the postseason tend to be able to do is run the football. He wants to make sure he implements that mindset and that DNA, that fabric within the Giants, and get back to what made those Giant teams under Tom Coughlin, teams that nobody really wanted to deal with on any given Sunday.
It's going to be fascinating to watch, man, how they continue to develop throughout the course of camp. One dude that stood out yesterday was Arvell Reese. He had a near interception. Emory, just the speed that they have at the second level of that defense with Tremaine Edmonds, with Arvell Reese. I talked to Cam Scatterbo post-practice yesterday, and he said, man, it's almost intimidating, doing our run install against that group, going 11-on-11 run game with no pads because they're just beating you to the landmarks. How good could that duo be in 2026?
I think overall, just based on what I've seen from the front seven, just from a stylistic standpoint, a body type standpoint, and just from what they potentially bring to the table collectively as a group, along with their athleticism, man, this is a top 5 defense. Because when you look at Arvell Reese next to Tremaine Edmonds, couple along with Abdul Carter, who can play inside or outside, Kayvon Thibodeau, who has the athleticism to drop in coverage and cover tight ends and whatnot. Then you have Brian Burns, who's a pass rush specialist, along with the guys that they filled in, on the interior to backfill the loss of Dexter Lawrence. You bring in a Shelby Harris, a solid veteran. You bring in a DJ Reader, very good pro. You also still have Alexander out there, Darius Alexander, whom they drafted last year out of Toledo. So I like how this front seven looks. There was a play in OTAs that I always reference where, Jameis Winston, it was a 2-minute drill. Jameis Winston throws a deep sideline route to Dalen Cambray, who makes a fantastic catch, and they hurry up on the ball, and Winston makes the right read and not a bad throw down the seam, which would have been a touchdown, but you just don't expect someone as the size of Arvell Reese to be 6'5", to jump up that high to go and snap the ball. He comes away with the interception. Or Tremaine Edmonds came away with the interception. So it's like, man, it wasn't a bad throw. It wasn't a bad read. It was a good ball. It's just that's the challenge you have, thinking, oh, this linebacker can't jump that high. I can get it over him. Nope. And so that causes the problem. We have 2 6'4", 6'5" inside linebackers with guys that can rush the passer coming off the edge. It puts a tight umbrella around the front seven.
Emory is crazy, brother. I swear for the Lord, the exact same play happened yesterday, Emory, and it was Arvell Reese leaping up into the passing lane and making Jackson Dart wrong on a decision. So you're speaking to it as well as I have, man. Real length and speed at the second level of this Giants defense, the front seven in particular, should make this a really, really good defense coming up in 2026. As you know, Emory, I'm out here in Latrobe, PA, at Steelers camp. Fans are starting to line up. I said this, man. The guys were like riding in on bikes. I don't know who bought the offensive lineman and defensive lineman electric bikes, but a lot of them have been riding around on it. The mug and scowl, Emory, that Cam Hayward had on his face walking into the facility. When you're a vet of his magnitude, training camp's probably not fun. When the pads come on, that guy's going to be angry. The Steelers' defense, I think, is going to be angry. They're back healthy. What do you make of what this defense can be in 26 under Pat Graham with some of the new additions to the secondary, with Jaquan Brisker and Jamel Dean?
And also Darnell Savage, too. He brought him in as well. So, they got some talent back there. I think the defense will continue to play Steeler-like defense. It's funny, if you told me that Jason Gilden or Levon Kirkland was on his defense, I'd probably say, yeah, that sounds about right, because it feels like everybody just kind of plug and play Pittsburgh defense, and they just get the same level of productivity. Right. I'm more impressed with the offense. I feel like they actually added a lot of talent in the draft. Get Jeremy Bernard, you add Caden Weegent, who not only can be a developmental slot guy, but also is your day one kickoff and punt returner. You have Eli Heidenreich out of Navy, that's a versatile chess piece. You bring in Rico Dotto, and it's like, man, this team looks good on paper on both sides of the ball. If the defense wasn't getting help, I felt like last year from the offense. I felt like the offense wasn't its usual self. They wasn't playing complementary football, but Rico Dotto kind of solves that. And then when you add Aaron Rodgers on a rebuild offensive line, I feel like this team, man, it looks good, but as good as they look, I mean, you just zoom out and look at the rest of that division, it looks even tougher for them to get to the top again.
Yeah.
So that's why I've always said, since April, like, man, that division might get 3 teams in, because you have to talk about the Bengals, the Ravens, obviously, and what the Steelers have done on paper. And the Browns, low key, beat the Steelers and Bengals to wrap up the season, and they look better on paper too.
For sure, man. I said it the other night on the show, and I know people are probably thinking he's being clickbaity. He's saying it to get clicks on the internet. For the first time since the 90s, Emery, I think we're going to see an entire division make the postseason. So if you're a Bills fan and a Patriots fan of that AFC East, someone's not going to make it. If you're a fan of the Texans or the Jags in that South, someone's not going to make it.
Listen, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I didn't mean to cut you off, because I felt the same way.
When
you think about the 2 divisions you listed, the East and the South, I can legitimately see one team getting out those divisions, and that's the division winner. So you're absolutely dead on, because when you look at the West and the North, it's hard to find, you could make the case that 4 teams out the North can get the playoff berth, as opposed to just multiple teams at the East and the South.
It's going to be fascinating to watch it play out. Our training camp tour we'll go to Cleveland next Friday, Emery, where I'll get a up-close and personal look at the Browns. That quarterback competition between Shedeur and Deshaun Watson seems like the early reports out of Browns camp is that Shedeur maybe has a leg up. Going back to your evaluation of him coming out of Colorado, and if you all aren't familiar, Emory Hunt, for my money, the best draft analyst in the game when it comes to the world of the NFL and college football, telling to you how a TI is, no favoritism, not going with the consensus thoughts. He does the work. Emery, when you go back to the work that you did on Shedeur, looking at the supporting cast that Andrew Berry and company have put in place, revamping the offensive line, revamping the receiving core, could Shedeur Sanders shock some people in 2026, Emery?
Absolutely, man. And this is one of the rare occasions where I've really locked into Shedeur Sanders for 4 straight years as a prospect, because I didn't know of him as a high school player. I just thought if he was going to Jackson State to follow his dad, maybe he's not as good as people say he is. And then when he got out there, I mean, he had it. I don't think people fully grasp. He had Jackson State ranked top 5 in the FCS. So we're talking about with North Dakota State, Montana, like Jackson State was as high as 3 in some FCS polls, and they had a chance to upset an FBS team. They lost 14-7 or 10-7 to UL Monroe, and they got cheated on the Shiloh, roughing the receiver penalty, targeting penalty. Otherwise, they'd have won that game. So watching him for 4 years and seeing what was around him, and it's like, man, this will be the best collection of talent that he's ever had around him, which includes an offensive line and a running game. If his running game is just average, it's what he had all 4 years in college. And they look so much more explosive. He's an explosive player. That's why I comped him to Joe Burrow. They may not look the great, the best physically, and when you see him walking out there, but, man, they got that killer mentality. They got that big play mentality. And when the game is on the line, you kind of want those type of solid assassins under center. So that's why I'm super bullish on the Browns. The defense is still going to be solid, going to be really good. I think because the offense now can score points, and we saw that play out the last 7 games that Shedeur Sanders started. It's like, man, they look lively. They're in these games. The only game that was blown up was the Bears game. But every other game they were in. They should have been 5-2 down the stretch. So, yes, this team with Shedeur Sanders, we could see a situation where it shocks people how Lamar Jackson's 2019 campaign shocked people. Maybe not MVP, but nobody expected Lamar Jackson to come out there and throw touchdowns in the opener.
Right. I totally am in lockstep with you on that. I just think the accuracy that he displayed during the 2 years at Colorado and what he put on tape, like that stuff you can't teach at the NFL level. There was a highlight from Browns practice yesterday, him hooking up with, I believe, Isaiah Bond with the safety hit in the corner, hitting that cover 2 honey shot. Like, he's got real legit NFL accuracy. Intrigued to see what he could be with some weapons around him. Let's go to the NFC East for a second. We talked about the Giants. I'm going to visit Eagles camp on Monday, Emery. the relationship between Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts is probably the most important storyline at Eagles camp. Almost a make or break year, Emery, for Jalen Hurts in terms of the fact that where it's like, hey, next year the cap hit jumps up significantly, and Philadelphia as an organization has to make a decision on, hey, do we believe in this guy as our long-term answer at quarterback or not? How do you see things playing out in the city of brotherly love coming up this year?
The Eagles not dumb, man. They know that team is Jalen Hurts. And it's funny because a guy like Justin Herbert can live his life, carefree, enjoy his summer, and everyone wants to, like with no playoff wins. And everybody wants to debate whether or not Jalen Hurts is worthy. And he's in the 2 Super Bowls, outplayed Mahomes in both, won one, and got the MVP in the one he won. And we're still questioning whether or not he's the answer long-term in Philly. That's just bananas to me. But shout out to Herbert. It's nice work if you can get it. But Jalen Hurts is a Eagle. And we saw him get to the postseason with Jalen Reagor, a rookie Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders at running back. So it's not about Hurts. It's mostly about whether or not Mannion and also their head coach can stay out of their own way. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the key. So Hurts is. We talked about this with Burrow. We talked about this with Shador. Hurts, for my money, I want in a clutch situation because I know he can handle it. And I know we've seen this time and time again at Alabama, at Oklahoma, and then obviously with the Philadelphia Eagles. So he is, to me, lockstep in what Philadelphia is as a football city. He embodies that perfectly.
Yeah, one reason I think his play took a step back in 2025 a little bit is because they didn't have the same high-octane ground attack that they had the year prior. Saquon Barkley, I wouldn't even say he looked like a shell of himself. I would just say that offensive line, who has been touted as one of the best in the NFL over the past decade plus, they got pushed around a little bit in 2025. A lot of people, go back to the scheme and, talk about that. Look, we know how football is played. It's won and lost in the trenches on the long line of scrimmage, and I just didn't think that Eagles O-line last year played good enough, whether it was injuries, whether it was guys taking a step back. It just wasn't good enough. To me, Emery, they're a team that probably has the widest variance in terms of what they could be in 2026. I could see the Eagles being a 7-win team. I could also see the Eagles being a team that goes all the way to SoFi and punches their ticket to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think as long as you got Jalen Hurts, you're going to win at least 10 games. So in order for them to drop, they would have to have a rash of unfortunate injuries across the board. Because Jalen Hurts statistically had his best season throwing the football last year. So I think that's
doesn't feel like it, but
with a loud online presence of these .comers and bloggers, like now the goalposts have moved to can he make throws in between the hash marks? Like, how specific does hate have to be for, you know what I'm saying? Like, is the pass getting completed or not?
Yeah. Bottom line, I'm interested to see like who makes up for the loss of A.J. Brown, how big of a role Mekhi Lemon is having already in this offense. I'll be at Eagles camp coming up on Monday. A couple of more for you, Emery, before we let you go. Our guy Emery Hunt joining us right now. You can check him out on CBS Sports HQ, talking all things college football, NFL, CFL, USFL. If it's got pigskin involved, our guy Emery Hunt is all over it. Talk a little bit about the NFC East. I want to move to the AFC South. Talk about Jalen Hurts and his, the way he's been kind of talked about online. C.J. Stroud, and the last time we saw him, just left a bad taste in our mouth in terms of the turnovers and the way he played, in their postseason games. When you look at Stroud going into a pivotal year with the Houston Texans, do you think he's able to bounce back, and if so, why?
I do feel like he's able to bounce back. And shout out to Justin Herbert once again. Stroud has won playoff games, and but Herbert again skating through the off season. But for Stroud, I think this is funny when it's quarterbacks they find the right nuance and context. When it's quarterbacks they always want to knock. Because think about it. Remember how they was knocking Stroud pre-draft about the C2 test, and then he came out there and had a fantastic rookie season. And then they had to switch and pivot, and now they could jump back to, I always thought he was. But no one brought up last year how different he looked after that concussion. I felt like he still had ill effects. That concussion when he came back. And you saw that in games that they won. So I think now with a full, clean bill of health, fine. Knock on wood, they allegedly fixed the offense, and they keep moving good pieces out, but they keep bringing in good pieces too. So hopefully they found the right mix. And I do feel like a David Montgomery providing that balance along with Woody Morris gives them a little bit more safety in terms of having him drop back 40-plus times a game, because he didn't forget how to throw the football. It looked like that in the Patriots game. And again, only because they lost that game, no one focuses on that on the other side. Drake May was giving that thing up too, multiple times. Like, they were trying to give the Texans the game, but the game was given right back to the Patriots all day long. So it was a bad game for both guys. But I do feel like he's healthy. There will be no ill effects of the concussions. The offensive line is fixed, and they got a better emphasis on the run game, and the defense still number one in the league, in my opinion. So he'll be fine. He'll prove again that he's a good quarterback, and last year was an aberration, and that's a sign of things to come.
I hope so, man. I'm personally a big fan of C.J. Stroud. Look, what he did during his final season in college, I think he was more than deserving of being drafted where he was. I thought he was the best quarterback coming out. Obviously, it didn't play out that way on draft night. We were talking about this before we brought you on briefly, Emory. Baker Mayfield, man, as vocal as I've ever seen him in terms of his displeasure right now with this Bucs organization and their inability to come to terms on a contract extension. Do you believe Baker Mayfield, Emory, is a quarterback you win with or a quarterback you win because of?
I think both. It depends on the game. And, we've seen him do it multiple times in his career. I just feel like for Baker, I think Baker is Baker's own worst enemy, in the sense that I feel like instead of just going out there and just playing the game, he tends to feel like I have to put everything on my shoulders and go out there and constantly prove I'm worthy, and that's what gets him injured. And then once he gets injured, instead of stepping back and be like, I shouldn't go today, it's like, well, I can't take the day off or the game off because, I feel like I got to go out there because they doubt me and they don't believe I can play through injuries. Then he goes out there and plays through an injury and just exacerbates the problem, and then they'll use that to knock him. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so I feel like Baker, and Baker has been vocal about wanting to be in Tampa. He actually fits the mentality, just like how we talk about Jalen Hurts in Philly. Mm-hmm. He fits that swashbuckling style in Tampa, and Todd Bowles and what he wants to accomplish as a football team. And listen, week 1 through 6, we were talking about Baker's probably the MVP of the league. And how well he was playing. So, full bill of health, I do feel like cooler heads will prevail. They'll find a way to pay Baker and Vita Vea. But I feel like Baker constantly gets disrespected, but he also has to understand, you got to throw Kenny Rogers, no one to hold him, no one to fold him.
Yeah. Finishing up the convo real quick on the Bucs. On the defensive side of the football, it feels like, Emory, the last couple of years, they've kind of faltered down the stretch. I believe it was 4 out of their final 8 games they gave up, 27 or more points. Do you kind of attribute that to the injuries or what when it comes to Tampa and what they are defensively right now? Because that, to me, is another question mark for them going into next year.
I think it's a combination of both the injuries and the lack of personnel. So you hope that a guy like Reuben Bain steps in and fills that void of the consistent pass rusher. You hope a guy like Keontae Scott can go along with a good secondary. I think the secondary has good personnel, but, we always talk about the front end helping out the back end. That didn't happen for them last year, so they got exposed a little bit. But the talent is there. So I feel like the personnel was mostly the issue. Looks like they've solved that. But obviously when you plug up the holes, here comes another leak, and it's the Vita Vea wanting to be traded because of his contract situation. So if they can enter the season with all 11 guys that are currently on the depth chart as the starters, I think they'll be fine.
Emory, appreciate you making some time for us. As always, my friend, continue to do good work, brother.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, indeed. One of the absolute best talking all things National Football League. Our guy, Emory Hunt, CBS Sports HQ. Give him a follow on the X app at FBall Game Plan. A lot more to get to as we're out here on stop number 4 of our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour out in Latrobe, Pennsylvania with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll get an in-depth look at the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up on the other side Their head coach, Mike McCarthy, yesterday with some pretty lofty expectations for the Steelers offense in 26. We'll let you hear from Mike McCarthy. Plus, I'll set my expectations for the 26 Steelers next here on Westwood One Sports.
Jerry Jones is all in and open to trading for a player.
I'd give up future to add to where we are today.
Will the Cowboys trade for Raiders star Max Crosby? Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Lynnell Willingham.
About a half hour left to go in the program. Saturday morning sports with the youngest in Charles and Willingham, getting you up to 11 a.m. Eastern time as we take you coast to coast. Stop number 4 of our Westwood One Sports Night training camp tour brings us to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, home of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The final training camp of future Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers' career, so he says. We'll see at the end of the year whether or not that's true or not. More importantly, the first training camp of the Mike McCarthy era. And we were talking about this as we opened up the show. I don't know if the casual fan pays, really close attention to this, but the reality is, man, Mike McCarthy, while the X's and O's stuff is super important, while it's super important for them to be, crisp on both offense and defense and to have a mastery of both as they install these new schemes, his ability to develop relationships with guys throughout, this roster, I think is the most important piece of this training camp for Mike McCarthy and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They get a unique opportunity. Not a lot of teams do what the Steelers do in terms of going on a college campus, spending time with one another. That camaraderie that you build with one another during this time, man, you cannot measure it. You cannot really calculate it. And look, I think each and every year, the Steelers are one of the most tight-knit groups in the NFL, and they're one of the most formidable outfits in the NFL, man. They are never they never hit rock bottom is the best way that I would describe this organization. As they get geared up, though, for year one of Mike McCarthy, there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Steelers fan. We were talking about the offense earlier, and last year, just talking to folks around Pittsburgh, talking to fans, and watching it myself, the biggest issue that folks had with this Steelers offense is they did not push the ball down the field. And to put it more bluntly, they really struggled to create explosives. And if you're going to struggle to create explosives in the NFL in 2026, you're not going to be a very good football team. Despite their clear limitations offensively, they punched their ticket to the postseason. Obviously, the Ravens and Tyler Loop helped them out a lot with that. But the bottom line is they were a postseason team last year. And if you're Mike McCarthy, if you're the front office here in Pittsburgh, when they let go of Mike Tomlin, it's not about kind of starting from square one. It's about building on the foundation that's already been set from a personnel standpoint, from a culture standpoint. That is where Mike McCarthy and the rest of the coaches and players on this staff, for that matter, are going to have to really dig in and lock in and be on the same page. As far as the outlook for the 2026 Pittsburgh Steelers, I talked about the Eagles having a wide variance of success or failure, right? Like I can see the Eagles being a 6-win team. I could also see the Eagles punching their ticket to SoFi and representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. When it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, what makes or breaks their 2026 season is what we were just talking about a moment ago. Are they going to be able to generate explosive plays on the offensive side of the football? You bring in Rico Dowdle to split carries with Jaylen Warren, who was awesome last year. Bringing in Michael Pittman via trade, one of the better deep threats in the National Football League. I think it was a really shrewd move. I love the Jeremy Bernard acquisition. But the reality is when it comes to Steelers football over the course of time, it's about running the ball. It's about controlling both sides of the line of scrimmage. That's probably where I'm most bullish on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really like this young, ascending offensive line. I love what they have in the middle with Zach Frazier. I'm a huge fan of Broderick Jones. His health, obviously, is going to be a big talking point here throughout the course of camp. They drafted Maxi Iheanacho with their first-round pick. To me, that was the best pass-protecting tackle in the entire draft, and the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to acquire him. Who ends up being that starting 5 up front is going to be huge. And then their defensive line. Look, it's an unheralded group as far as I'm concerned. I don't think they get enough praise in terms of the quality of the group. Everyone's going to talk about Cam Hayward. Everyone's going to talk about, T.J. Watt. But the 2 defensive tackles that they have in Keanu Benton and Derek Harmon, I love them as much as anybody in the NFL on the interior. Real juice as pass rushers, but also stout enough at the point of attack to play the run. Just a big fan of this defense. Patrick Graham comes in, year number 1 being the guy calling the plays defensively, implementing his scheme. And if you look at Patrick Graham over the course of his lifetime in the NFL, too high safety look. They're going to bring pressure. They're going to rely on the front four, though, to do most of the work. They won't play coverage. The dudes that they have in this back end, once they're all healthy and available, I think it's a really intriguing group, man. We know what Jalen Ramsey is. Casual NFL fans, you may not know who Jamel Dean is. I thought the signing of Jamel Dean was probably one of the more underrated free agent acquisitions in all of the NFL. I think he is somebody who really has the size and length to play that position at a high level. Injuries have been his problem throughout the course of his career, but 6'1", 205 pounds, real length on the perimeter. Him opposite Joey Porter Jr. Now, the Steelers have the corners that kind of fit the DNA of what they want to be as a defense, man. Being physical at the point of attack at the line of scrimmage, being handsy. I think Jamel Dean comes in and has an excellent first year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But like I said, this team, in terms of their success for 2026, it's all about offensive line and defensive line play. And last year we saw that offensive line at times become a little bit nicked up. You saw the same thing up front with the defensive line. But as important as the line play is, and I'm going to stop acting like I'm some 75-year-old radio host for a second. That's not me acting, right? It's just I understand the importance of trench warfare. Anybody that's never gotten the chance to play high school football, little league football, college football. I was a Division III defensive lineman, right? And it's ironic. The hairs on my arms are standing up being here at St. Vincent. I can give a rat's ass about the Bearcats. I'm a Bethany Bison, so this doesn't matter to me. I hate this place. But the reality is if you understand offensive line play and defensive line play, it is a 60-minute fight in a phone booth. Imagine you got brothers and sisters out there, right? Everybody that listens probably has a sibling, right? Imagine you and your sibling getting into a fist fight inside of a phone booth. That is how I describe offensive line and defensive line play. And when it comes to the Steelers, to me, that is what is going to make or break this 2026 season. Aaron Rodgers, though, the elephant in the room, I guess, as we've had this conversation about Pittsburgh. Haven't brought him up yet. Look, the reality is, like I said to open up the show, for whatever reason, right? And maybe it's the ayahuasca, maybe it's him being secretive about his personal life. It feels like over the past several years, post Green Bay, evaluators out there in the NFL, media folks and more, have let their feelings about Aaron Rodgers, the person, influence how they, analyze and evaluate Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback. Watching him play last year, doesn't look like a guy that's getting ready to call it quits, right? I know they didn't push the ball down the field vertically a lot, but the accuracy was still there from Aaron Rodgers. Getting the football out on time, that was still there from him. Linking back up with Mike McCarthy, initially I rolled my eyes at it. I didn't understand why the Steelers did it. But in reality, when you look at this roster, what were your other options at the quarterback position? And I was somebody that advocated earlier this offseason, for Will Howard or, one of the other youngsters to potentially get a chance. But the reality is when you look at how veteran-laden of a roster this is, how do you look Cam Hayward in the face and tell him you're serious about winning football games if you go out and start a Mason Rudolph or Drew Aller or, the kid that they brought in last year, man? It's going to be fascinating. Aaron Rodgers is the glue that kind of piecemeals all of this together. What he didn't have the benefit of last year, and I think he'll have that this time around, fingers crossed, right? If you're a Steelers fan, bring it, like we talked about earlier, bringing in Rico Dowdle, adding a hammer, a physical element to this rushing attack behind this really good offensive line. I think that's where things start for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. Can they be balanced on the offensive side of the football? Because at this point in Aaron Rodgers' career, I don't care how much him and Mike McCarthy play smoochies. If you think that Aaron Rodgers is capable of dropping back 35-plus times a game at this point in his career, you're a damn fool. So there's a reason they brought in Rico Dowdle. There's a reason there is an emphasis on Jaylen Warren and his role continuing to expand. I think for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers to be successful in 2026, Aaron Rodgers needs to assume the role of point guard, be a distributor. Get the football out of your hands to this really talented skill group that, Andy Waddell and Omar Khan have done a really nice job putting together, man. Compared to the group they had last year, I think the Steelers night and day better at the skill position spot. The question is, like we talked about, will the front five on this offensive line allow this offense to really reach its ceiling for what it can be in 2026. In terms of their ceiling, best case scenario for the 2026 Pittsburgh Steelers, winning a playoff game or two. If everything goes right and everything falls in their favor, when you look at what they have offensively and defensively, just from a personnel standpoint, how are they not looked at as one of the most formidable groups in the AFC? A conference that all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, to me at least, maybe y'all thoughts differ, I think the AFC is wide open. Y'all know how I feel about the Patriots from a season ago. Probably the most fraudulent Super Bowl representative in recent memory, man. You look at the drop-off in play from the quarterback to the from the regular season to the postseason. It kind of tells the story, man. Pittsburgh is a part of a handful of teams that I think could shock folks across the NFL in terms of just how far they could go in the landscape of the AFC. 310-840-4910 is the number here on Saturday Morning Sports with the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham, getting you up to 11 a.m. Steelers practice about 50 minutes away from starting. Fans filing in, lined up here at St. Vincent College out in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. I know, if you know me personally, you know how much I hate being here right now. But no, in all sincerity, appreciate the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting us in the show here this morning. Super duper appreciative of the opportunity, man. This has been an absolute ball, getting to watch the players file into the facility, getting to watch all these sicko Steeler fans file in. I'll say this, there are probably more kids here in line. I've been to it's my 4th training camp stop of the tour. No fans at Commanders because they just do things a little bit different. This is probably the most kids I've seen at a training camp throughout this tour. It shows you just how deeply rooted the fandom goes for this organization. 3 generations of Steeler fans out here. You know it would suck. You know it would suck for all these Steeler fans out here if the team wasn't very good. Players starting to file out onto the practice field. Remember to keep it locked on Westwood One Sports, specifically on the YouTube side. Subscribe to our Westwood One Sports Now YouTube account to get our exclusive training camp coverage all training camp long. Chris is in Lexington, wants to chime in on the black and gold. Chris, what's going on, pal?
Oh, man, Lynnell. I've said every time I call in, I tell you that I would love you and I to sit at a sports bar and share a beer, right? Well, as soon as I logged on this morning, because I can't remember if I told you, I'm a born and raised Pittsburgh boy, about 20 minutes south of the city. My first training camp, I'm 56 now. My first training camp, and it was so cool what you just said about all the kids. I was one of those kids, Lynnell. My first training camp was 1980. I was 10 years old.
For sure.
Oh, my, yes. And exactly what you said, it is. You're born. I got my first travel towel from my dad when I was probably 6 years old. I didn't know what the hell to do with it, but I remember him saying to me, son, just swing it. And by the time I got 9, 10 years old, I really understood. And it goes that deep. But I tell you what, man, there's no other place I'd rather have a beer with you than sitting in Latrobe. So as soon as I logged on this morning, I'm like, man, he's there. So very jealous, my friend. I respect Emery so much, and I love to hear what he had to say positively about us. I heard what you just had to say, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, the national media, Lynnell, I listen to a lot of sports radio, buddy. And it just seems like everybody's down on us, sleeping on us, and that's fine. And, look, I'm not delusional. No, I know this isn't going to be 2010 Aaron Rodgers, but what you said in the last, when you previewing what you said about Aaron, the only thing that he's lost, Lynnell, is his ability, like he did in the early days, to extend plays, throw off script and whatnot. Right. He just can't move. But that arm strength is still there, Lynnell. The accuracy, as you talked about, is still there. And the one thing, it was DK and a bunch of cast-offs last year. And the explosive plays, yes. I think one of the more under-the-radar signings, what Omar Carr did was when he went out and got Michael Pittman Jr. I mean, and now when we drafted Bernard, I sat there and I jumped out of my seat, just watching him play at Alabama, what he could bring, and what you said about Dowdle, compliment to Warren. So my thing is that young offensive line is coming together. If they can give Aaron time to let this offense develop, he knows McCarthy's system better than anybody in the world. I think our offense can be explosive, and I totally agree with you about Patrick. I thought our defense got away from its Blitzburg mentality for years, And as soon as we got Graham, and I remember reading a quote from him. He said last year with the Raiders, he could only use about 35 to 40% of his scheme because he didn't have the players to pull it off. And he said once he met this group, he said, now I can implement everything. So bringing back the fire zone.
He can let it all hang out.
Yes.
I dig it. Letting it all hang out on the defensive side. Chris, we're up against this, so I'm going to let you run, brother. Good to hear from you. As always, man, the ambiance starting to come through here, man. You can hear the three generations of Steelers fans out here in Latrobe for practice. We just saw Jalen Warren on his little electric scooter get ready to take the practice field. And now the newest Steeler running back, Rico Dowdle, getting some love from the Steeler faithful, man. Let's do this. One final segment to go before we close things out. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, I'll give you my top 6 NFL teams. Another installment, fresh installment, NL Super 6-Pack, my top 6 NFL teams the first week of training camp. That's next here on Westwood One Sports.
Bucs QB Baker Mayfield doesn't have a new contract, and D lineman Vita Vea requested a trade. Will the Bucs stars be jumping ship? Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Lynnell Willingham.
Notice it's gotten a hell of a lot louder out here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the site of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp, the first training camp under the tutelage of new head coach Mike McCarthy, in the final training camp of the illustrious career of one Aaron Rodgers. So he says. We appreciate you all continuing to lock in, man. We will end the show this way. First, I'll give you a little disclaimer. Continue to subscribe to us on YouTube. Search Westwood One Sports Night for training camp exclusive content as I continue my training camp tour. Stop number 4 this afternoon in Pittsburgh. We're off tomorrow before a trip to Philadelphia on Monday, so make sure you continue to lock in. Right now, let's get to the most highly anticipated power ranking segment in all of sports talk radio. No Super Six Pack. My top 6 teams in the NFL, 1 week in NFL training camp.
3, 2, 1, ready. It's the most highly anticipated power ranking segment in all of sports radio. Sit back, crack a can. It's time for Nell's Super Six Pack.
What's up, world? You know I'm addicted to keeping it real. Nell's Super Six Pack, the most highly anticipated power ranking segment in the landscape of sports talk radio. Let's get to it. We're 1 week in the NFL training camps. This is who I have currently as the top 6 teams in the NFL. We start the list off with a bang. I know I'm a Commanders fan. I know I love the burgundy and gold through and through. But at number 6 in Nell's Super Six Pack, my top 6 teams in the NFL as we're 1 week into training camp, it is the Dallas Cowboys, man. I'm super duper intrigued by what Christian Parker could do for that defense. They revamped their secondary, bringing in Caleb Downs. You brought in Jalen Thompson from the Arizona Cardinals. I love what they have in the secondary all of a sudden. I'm starting to like their pass rush, too. A couple of sophomores that I'm super interested in for the 2026 season. Sharon Revel, the corner for the Dallas Cowboys, and then Donovan Ezeraku, who had an up-and-down year as an edge rusher. He looks like he's been eating the weights this offseason. I expect him to be a lot better as well. Number 5 in Nell's Super Six Pack, my top 6 teams in the NFL 1 week into training camp. It is the Seattle Seahawks. The smooth sound that you just heard was the Steelers faithful geeked up about Pat Freiermuth taking the practice field. The Seahawks, though, come in at number 5. You know how I feel about Seattle. We spent a good amount of time on them last week. Sam Darnold led all quarterbacks in turnovers a season ago, yet the Seahawks were able to go 14-3 and punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. That won't happen again in 2026. What makes or breaks the Seahawks is what version they get of one Sam Darnold. Number 4 in Nell's Super Six Pack, my top 6 teams in the NFL 1 week into training camp. Number 4, the Buffalo Bills. They had some pretty tragic information earlier this show that we did not give to you. Their free agent acquisition at the safety spot, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, carted off the practice field with a non-contact injury, had a towel over his head, so we can only assume the worst there when it comes to him. As far as the rest of the Buffalo Bills, Joe Brady, probably the head coach that's under the most pressure going into 2026. Last time I checked, it was the offense's fault as to why they got bounced from the postseason, yet Sean McDermott was canned. Why am I bullish on the Bills? I love what they did at wide receiver, man, going out and adding DJ Moore. I'm a big fan of what they have up front with the offensive line. I know how I feel about James Cook. I think the Bills will bounce back because of the man that they have under center at the quarterback position. Continuing L Super Six-Pack Rapid Fire. Number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles. We talked about them a ton throughout this show. Number 2, the Denver Broncos. Only if we get a healthy Bo Nix. And then number 1, the LA Super Rams, as I'm calling them, going into the 2026 season. They will host the Super Bowl at SoFi. That's going to do it here from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the site of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp. Our training camp tour continues this afternoon in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. Make sure you continue to like, subscribe, and comment. Just search Westwood One Sports Night on YouTube for our training camp exclusive coverage. Thank you to our guy Carlos with a K. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to Emery Hunt. Most importantly, thank you for your calls. I'm back with you tomorrow morning.
This is Westwood One Sports.